Powered by Rev Media and in partnership with TSN, this is Season 5. It is Episode 2 of the Ray Dregs Hockey Podcast, and it is presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey. Just rolling through the preseason here, Ray. It's Friday as we're taping this, Episode 2, Season 5 of Ray and Dregs. We've got the Leafs and the Canadians tonight on TSN, likewise, back-to-back Friday, Saturday. But you know what? It's also good to hang around a little bit. So how about this one? So on Wednesday, I don't think you participated, historically speaking here. TSN throws this big employee get-together. You know, it's a nice thing. They've got a barbecue out there. They've got a ball hockey tournament, a soccer tournament. It's kind of a big deal. I'm not going to lie. So, you know, just in the spirit of being a good team guy, I agree to participate. No, hold on. Back up. I agree to show up, to make an appearance like a month or so ago. I get there on Wednesday. I'm on a team. I'm expected to play.
What did you think you were going to do? Go there and wave from a balcony or something?
I was going to be Scotty Bowman Toblake. I was going to be the coach, or I was going to be the quote unquote celebrity referee. But that turned out to be Gino Retta, because Gino was perfectly suited.
Yes.
For the nose and the glasses and all of that routine, right? So I get there. How about this team, which, by the way, ended up winning the ball hockey championship?
Okay.
I didn't stay for the whole thing because Holly's away, so I had to get back and look after the dog, and I had some other stuff going on. So I played a couple of games. So it was me, Frankie Corrado, Cheryl Pounder, James Duthie, Sean Puffy Cameron, Alex Lepizero is a terrific little goalie. Troy White. I mean, it was a pretty stacked team, right? So play the first game. Not gonna lie, 3-1 win. I was +2 with a couple of apples. Second game, I don't know. We won that one handily. I did not play soccer, but I have never been more stiff. And I'm giving myself a bit of credit because I've been trying. You know, I've been walking about 45 minutes a day, doing, 3-4 kilometers a day with Tiny, and it's been great. And then you kind of push it a little bit. And you're no good. And I'm worse today than I was yesterday.
Yes. Okay. So here's the question. Is it your back or your sides that are killing you?
It's my thighs, my quads.
Oh. Yeah,
and I think it was the stopping, the starting, right? Like, you're playing on asphalt. And
do you know who I can't see being of much help on that team?
Who's that?
Well, just think of it as you're naming it. Duthie.
James Duthie? He scored a beauty, though, like a knife.
But I mean, like, there's not a lot of grind there.
Yeah, he's actually. I'm going to defend him, Ray.
Nice, really.
I mean, you've golfed with him. His level of compete is pretty high. And okay, this is what threw me off. Growing up in Saskatchewan, I love soccer. I mean, clearly you're a big soccer family. I did not play the soccer games, mostly because I knew that I just couldn't do it. There was no way.
Right.
Growing up in Saskatchewan, soccer was a warm-up sport. That's what you did to warm up, and that was the extent of it. Duthie is a southpaw soccer player. And it was weird seeing him tee it up with that left leg, but he's actually not too bad.
Yeah, I'm assuming Frankie's probably pretty good at soccer.
Yeah, Frankie was good, and you know what is he? 6'1", 6'2",
and the other thing is he's also 25 years younger than everybody else too. So
big
things
wingspan.
still move. Yeah,
this won't even shock you a little bit because I can see Cammie in the same sort of scenario here. Cheryl Pounder battles.
She's a compete.
There's some hacking. There's some slashing. You stick lift her out there and you're getting one. Like there's a level of intensity. So congratulations to the TSN hockey group because they won. They probably won because I wasn't playing, but Frankie had to bail too. So did Cheryl. So they gutted it out. So it was a
good. Sounds like a good one.
Yeah. How was your week? Pretty good.
We were underwater for most of it. We got our one blast of rain here, our first one. But today's a big day because it's my last round of golf before the season. So
Interesting.
I got a new putter. I went to a putting clinic, and they look at all your, your putter on the screen and through the analytics, and not shockingly,
underrated
because,
exercise, right? Underrated.
Yeah.
I went through something similar last year.
I'm above horrific as a putter, but not much. And so,
Yeah,
not
me too.
surprisingly, that the monitor was like, it looked like somebody having a heart attack. It was like going up and down. My ball was bouncing all over the place. And so now I got a new putter. I got it angled in. And so today it's going to be, I think it's going to be a great send off of golf. Either that, or it's just going to be a send off because this is it. I got to get to work.
We're fortunate because, we have great relationships with all sorts of sport manufacturers, right? Like FootJoy's been tremendous with us and sending us, golf shirts and shoes and all of that stuff. I had no idea how much a good putter costs until I went through the process, and I'm like, you know what? Titleist has been great to me. I'm going to buy a putter here. That I'm going to get off my wallet.
How'd that go?
Yeah, well, you know what? It's fantastic, Scotty Cameron. So I'm not going to complain about it in the bigger picture. But
as they say, though, it's more often than not, it's the carpenter, not the tool, man.
Oh, yes. I've gone through so many different grip changes. Now I've settled in on the one finger claw. I don't know what you call that, but went to the lower
desperate is what you call it.
That's what you call it. That's exactly right. All right, we've got some news to chew on, and that's not surprising, as, again, you wade through the preseason. And we'll get to Tampa Bay right off the top of headlines, because that's the big story. Our Tim Hortons headlines, by the way, Ray. Thrilled to welcome Tim Hortons to the podcast. In Canada, Tim's NHL trading cards are back with an all-new set, so go get ready to unpack the thrill and score your favorite hockey stars. Grab them before they're gone, starting early next week, October 2nd, and, of course, as always, only at Tim's. Andrei Vasilevskiy had back surgery. So he's out a minimum. Well, they're saying 8 to 10 weeks. I'm going to call it a minimum of 2 months. No cap space. Very tough decision. Julian Brisebois, the general manager of the Lightning, in response comes out and says, well, we've got 4 or 5 preseason games here, so we're going to get our guys some reps. And hopefully, one of them kind of takes the reins here, and we're able to work with what we've got. Is that even a viable option, or does it make more sense to you that they make a trade, or they go to the market and they sign Jaro Halak as an experienced goalie? Who else is out there? Brian Elliott perhaps comes to mind. I mean, this is a problem, isn't it? A big, big problem when you invest the money that they have, deservedly so, to Andrei Vasilevskiy. And now all of a sudden you're in a tough, tight division, a tough, tight conference, and your superstar isn't available for the first 2 months of the start of the regular season.
It is inconceivable and impossible to think that they're going to get through the first 2 months of the year with the collection of guys they have left behind Vasilevskiy. And, they got Matt Tompkins, who played overseas and played on the Canadian Olympic team. Jonas Johansson, who's bounced around waivers for a little bit. Man, you might get a few good games here and there, but there's a reason that those guys have not been able to have a steady foot in the NHL at this point. And I think I think their best option is to wait to the end of the camp and look in that time at guys that pop up on waivers.
Yeah.
Somebody whose contract you can bury in the minors when eventually Vasilevskiy returns. Now, you can say you can use the cap space, but then you got to do something with it when Vasilevskiy returns. I mean, he's the best goalie in the game.
Yeah.
And to try and replace him is really, it's really not going to work for Tampa. This is a tough one, man. Like this, you're not even out of the gate. We've seen what attrition and the salary cap has done to their team over the last couple of years. And now you take your best player and pull him out of the lineup.
Catches up to you, though, doesn't it, man? Yep. That's just the evolution and how the cycle turns with all these top contending teams. I'm going to throw a curveball at you right out of the gate here, because we do have breaking news, compliments of the Ottawa Senators this morning, and really will come as no surprise. But I know that you know this individual very, very well. Steve Staios just named president of hockey operations for the Ottawa Senators, and great relationship, deep history with Michael Andlauer, who's just been announced as owner of the Ottawa Senators, dates through the Hamilton Bulldogs, the Ontario Hockey League. But I know, people are going to look at this, Ray, and they're going to say, okay, well, now the clock is ticking on Pierre Dorion. Maybe. I mean, Dorian's had a good run, but I don't think that Steve Staios is going in there as a hired henchman. He's going in there as a conduit for Michael Andlauer and ownership to get a look at the work of Pierre Dorion and management and the coaching staff headed by DJ Smith. I mean, predictable, yes, but I think that this is an excellent hire by Andlauer. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm an original Thrasher, Steve Staios. He's come a long way, especially when he comes to camp and he's a defenseman, and I look up on opening night and he's my right winger. And I'm like, he's never played wing before, and now he's a winger. Yeah. And so, anyway, he's had a long business history with Andlauer. And when I say business, it wasn't just that he was the manager in Hamilton. It was in the Ontario Hockey League. It was the business side. It was putting together how the billet families are selected and the players that go in there. It's the marketing. It's really was the president and the general manager. And so the connection to the business side, I think, is pretty important here. There will be some uncertainty that sits there for sure, because the Senators are, they've been through the mud here while they've been collecting these young players. And now it feels like they're just on the cusp of something pretty good. And are you going to go in and make a bunch of changes? Probably not. But it's Staios' job now to evaluate everything that is underneath the president's seat. And that would include management and trainers and how they travel. And there's not an area he wouldn't dig into. And so it's not surprising at all. The next question becomes with, Staios, who had started to work in Edmonton last year, and with Jeff Jackson going in there and Ken Holland on the last year of his contract, there was a lot of thought that Staios would be the next general manager. Now there's got to be some internal pivot in Edmonton, but that comes under Jeff Jackson's purvey. And so it's pretty interesting. One domino moves and a whole bunch of other things move with it.
Yeah, a lot of work getting done in Ottawa. Andlauer brings Cyril Leader back into the mix, a very popular executive in Ottawa. So, we'll see now. Obviously, the next the next shoe to drop is getting Shane Pinto back in the mix, and I expect that that's going to happen in the very near future. They need him, and they get him in that 3-hole, and they're pretty solid to start the season, at least up the middle of the ice. Speaking of young players, right, and former players who are now executives, how about the negotiations between Pat Verbeek, the general manager of the Anaheim Ducks, with Pat Brisson, who represents Trevor Zegras, and Dave Gagne, who represents Jamie Drysdale? I mean, these negotiations, to be polite, are in the mud. That's where they're at. Frustration on all sides here. All sides, no doubt about that. And I get it. I mean, you don't want to throw boatloads of money in term at second contracts, regardless of how dynamic you might be in Trevor Zegras. And, Drysdale was hurt through much of last season. There's an undercurrent and a side story there that maybe he was ready to come back last year and he didn't come back, or they wouldn't allow him to come back, which then minimized the number of games. So now he doesn't have arb rights, and Anaheim has his rights for the next 2 years. I mean, that's tough business. If that's the case, that's tough business. But where I disconnect, and fight me on this if you want, Ray, Verbeek had no trouble throwing out money to veteran guys. Gudas. What did Alex Killorn get? Like a 4-year deal. It's $6+ million per year. And, you're playing hardball with at least one of the two, but I'm going to say two young players that were putting bums in the seats. in a market that, yeah, it's been a winning market historically, but they need those flashy young players in the lineup. And both guys are dug in saying, no, we're not doing it. So we'll see.
Well, if anyone, I don't know why they would, had any question about Pat Verbeek's battle level for just about anything, I roomed with Pat a little bit. So we used to have one remote control in the room. And so he always liked to watch these ridiculous hunting and fishing shows. And there was one TV and there was no Netflix or anything. So what am I going to do? I don't hunt nor fish. And so we battled for the remote. I never won because it was impossible. That guy he just will not lose. So now he's an executive, and he worked at the right shoulder of Steve Yzerman for a long time.
Yeah, and
there's no freebies with Steve either, and so they've got their their master plan like every team does, and right now it is part of it is they're not going to bend on term nor money with Zegras and Drysdale. Drysdale I get a little bit more because of the lack of games that he's played before he got hurt. That is interesting, the games and the arb rights. That happens in baseball a lot with service time where they hold guys in the minors before they should get called up. They're ready to get called up and they don't do it. This doesn't happen a lot in hockey because the situation has to be right.
Yeah.
Zegras is interesting. I don't know him, but there seems to be a pushback all the time with the flashiness that he plays the game with. I don't really care because he's trying to win, but he's trying to win in a different way than older school players and people would look at. What difference does it make if he tries a pass from behind the net that doesn't connect, or if he flips it over the top of the net and it doesn't connect? It's the same play. If it ends up in the net, it ends up in the net. If it gets intercepted, it gets intercepted. So there seems to be this battle between style and production. And if I were Zegras, I'd be looking at Troy Terry's 7-year contract and say, wait a minute, like, how does that not equal something different for me? So this is stage setting for Anaheim in both the near and longer term future, because what you do with Zegras, you might do with Leo Carlsson in a couple of years down the road too. And they're just at the base of this rebuild. That's a really interesting one that if it wasn't Anaheim, it wouldn't be so quiet. Like if it was somewhere, if it was in Canada somewhere or in New York, or man, that would be it would have a far edgier note to it.
Tim Hortons headlines. Ray, we've seen some bite in this preseason, which isn't unusual, right? Because it is the battle for your livelihood in certain situations. Sure. Case in point, Hayden Hodgson of the LA Kings with a big run on Mark Stone, who joined us earlier in the week in episode 1 of the Ray Dregs podcast. It caused a dust up, as you'd expect. And before we get your reaction to that, and there's been other stuff in this preseason, let's hear from Mark Stone and his response to Hayden Hodgson's hit and attempt to maybe take him out.
It's probably the last time I'll ever play against that guy. Not really much of a player, so leave it at that. I think I scared him a little, didn't I? No, I honestly, I was looking around for some of their talented players and trying to run at them, and he was really the only one. So it's unfortunate you're playing against a team like that. They're trying to make a name for themselves, and usually in preseason.
Did Brandon Clark respond to you during that little interaction?
No, it's done.
I mean, I'm good with it. A little spice, but you and I in our preamble prior to recording, also went back and forth on the Hodgson hit, and there have been others. We saw Student Nietzsche hit Pelche. It was a bit more sketchy, right? But Pelche looked like he turned at the last second.
By the way, Pelche's out shoulder surgery now.
Yeah,
which is Yeah, it sucks for them.
Really unfortunate. Cole Perfetti of the Winnipeg Jets was tagged in the neutral zone by Martin Pospisil of the Calgary Flames a bit late. Shoulder to the head. The Jets hated it. But let's go back to Mark Stone's reaction, a veteran player, and the hit by Hayden Hodgson. I mean, what has he got? Like 6-7 games in the National Hockey League? Here's a guy that's trying to earn a contract, right? and he's doing it by just whatever he can do to be noticed. So no problem with that hit, I trust.
No, except I think Vegas would hate the hit, and Mark Stone would hate the hit if it was in the middle of the season too.
Yeah,
they wouldn't have liked the play. However, the fact that it's in September catches you a little bit unaware. You're just not quite sharp and ready. You're trying to get yourself into some kind of game shape. When he was talking about scared him a little bit, that was in the scrum there. He grabbed Brant Clark, and poor kid. I mean, he's probably like, look, I got nothing to do with this.
Please leave me alone.
Yeah, that's a tough one for Clark, because all of a sudden you're in a little bit over your head. When he said that he'll never play against Hodgson again, that is one of the standard lines that you say to a guy, look, I'll never see you again. Beat it, scram.
One you probably used several times in preseason action during your career.
Yeah, I heard this early in my career, and I used it later on. If there was a scrum, I'd say to somebody, or it would get said, certainly, get a picture in that jersey. It'll be the last time you're ever in it. And of course, you got to be careful who you say that, because just because a guy hasn't played a lot in the NHL doesn't mean he can't knock the snot out of you either, because he can do that too. This has been a battle or a balancing act, and will always be. And that's guys that are trying to make an impact, to get noticed, because this is their dream. They want to get into the league too. And somebody that's been in the league or is a veteran, and they're like, beat it, scram. I just want to play. So I got a really good story, I think, about this. I'm playing in LA, and we're playing an exhibition game against Colorado in Vegas. So I don't know what this would be, I guess, mid to late 90s. And Adam Deadmarsh is a young veteran, but he's certainly a veteran at this point. And we got this young kid running around, and he wants to fight, like he wants to make his presence felt. And he keeps running into Deadmarsh. And, I know Adam, we're from the same area back home. And so he says to me, he's like, hey, Ray, tell that guy to beat it. Like, I'm just trying to get in shape, man. Like, what's he doing? It was early in the preseason, Dregs, like 1 or 2 games in. So I tell the kid at the end of the first period, I'm like, hey, look, just leave him alone. He's just playing. But if you're going to fight him, he's left-handed. Like, just
pro tip for you. Yeah.
And I never would say that, because I always thought, like, what if I tell a guy he's left-handed and then the guy hits him with 6 rights? Then I'm a jack, because I don't know anything about fighting. So anyways, early in the second period, he runs into him again. They fight, and Adam hits him with about 33 lefts. I mean, it's not close.
Fair warning.
So I go over and I dump his gloves in the box. I'm like, I look over his face looked like lumpy potatoes, right? Like, you could tell where he got hit a couple times. And as I'm leaving, Bedard is yelling at me. He's like, I told you. And I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? Like, it was like, a kid wanted to make his way, and it just didn't work out.
Oh, that is outstanding. So we have just enough time for 2 more quick headlines here. All right. How much have you seen of Connor Bedard? I mean, it's hard to miss if you're watching the sports shows, right?
He's from here.
ESPN.
Yeah, but he's from here, and so I've seen him since he was a little kid.
Yeah.
But amazing player. Amazing.
How about that saucer pass earlier this week? Like, I mean, okay, you're NHL players. You can make a saucer pass. It's not the most difficult play on the planet. This one was like an alley-oop. It was like 5 feet in the air. This kid is just unbelievable.
Yeah, but what was crazy about that game, so it was his first preseason game.
Yeah.
And his first assist, which was the first assist of the game, he makes a rush through the middle of the ice. At no point does he look like he's under any duress or stress.
No.
Like he's just like really comfortable. I'm kind of bouncing around. I like to take young players and compare them to players in the league.
Yeah.
So I can make a mental picture about what could they be like. And
that's a good idea.
He's built a lot like Crosby, but he doesn't play like Crosby. Like, Sid has more always been in the trenches and, grind it out.
Yeah.
And with all his skill and stuff, he's been able to physically impose himself on other players and make the advantage like that. Bedard's more like, I think like Austin Matthews. He's not as big, but he's got that shot. There's a little bit of elegance to the game, the way he plays, and the way that Matthews plays as well.
Yeah.
And so now I'm kind of like, oh, maybe he's a little bit like Matthews, but I've seen him play in the NHL one game now. So, it's really cool for me to watch and go, where is this kid going to get to? Where's he going to be in 5 games or 10 games? And I think I mentioned my first game of the year is in Pittsburgh. So we've got his NHL debut. And so I'm really, really looking forward to seeing Connor get going.
Okay. So from one budding, developing, potential great player in Connor Bedard to 2 pretty established great superstars, and that's Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Apparently, Ray, they've elevated their commitment to winning. And, people are going to go, really? Thanks, Captain Obvious. But, you would know this playing the game and being around great players, over your career and what that means. And so I'm talking to people inside that organization who say both arrived in camp with a chip on their shoulder. And they're probably not alone, but they're bona fide superstars. So they really, they lose to Colorado 2 years ago. All right. Colorado is a really good team. Edmonton wasn't quite ready. Pissed that they lost to the Vegas Golden Knights, even though Vegas went on to win that Stanley Cup. How motivating can that be? And in talking and doing some research around McDavid, person deeply associated, I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want it to grab a headline away from our headlines here, said he's the best leader he's ever been around. This is a non-player part of the staff. And that can kind of define itself in different ways, not just how he leads on the ice, how he holds people accountable, both good and sometimes bad when you got to be tough. The way he's managing things off the ice and all of that. So when I tell you all of that, what does that make you think of when you're thinking of McDavid and Draisaitl going into a new year?
Well, I think it's just, a couple of things. But one is that, so they lost to the Stanley Cup champion the last 2 years, right? Like it's not like they're losing to somebody and then somebody else gets blown out of the playoffs. So everybody that wins, it seems, at some point they talk about that you have to build up this scar tissue.
Yeah.
And you can only learn about it by doing it. I mean, somebody can tell you the playoffs are hard. You get in them and it's just a different world. And then you lose the first year and, McDavid comes back at, has 150 points. Draisaitl has another, fantastic year. And then they lose to Vegas. If you go back to that series, the difference in the series really became that Vegas's goaltending was better than Edmonton's.
Yeah.
And if you look at the numbers in that series, had Stu Skinner, Stu Skinner wasn't supposed to be in the net. That was supposed to be Jack Campbell. And Skinner took the net away from him and never gave it back. But that was his first kick at the can. If Skinner was a little bit more solid, maybe that series doesn't go the way it does. Skinner's a fantastic prospect. I think that kid's going to be really, really great. He was already good last year. I think he's going to be great. However, as to the leadership stuff for McDavid in particular and then Draisaitl, you can hold people accountable, but you have to remember, and I played with great players, that other people can't do what you can do. So you have to be a leader without making other people feel inferior. And I think that's really hard sometimes because these guys have a standard that other people just cannot get to. It's impossible. If he can find the balance, and of course we're not in the room, but if you're the people that are talking to you were saying he's finding that balance, there is nothing but positivity for that team because yes, you can pull the team along, but the other guys have to be able to feel that this is their team too.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing asset that a leader can have. And the very best players, Gretz had it. Mark Messier had it. Those are the era I'm talking about that, I played with Mark in New York, and I was amazed how everybody kind of just turned to him all the time. Yeah. No matter what happens, everybody's going to turn to McDavid and go, what do we do next? And if you've got a little bit of the road out, man, your team is going to continue to climb. Edmonton is really good, and that's going to be a beast of a Western Conference. So they're going to need all of it.
Agreed. All right, let's wrap up Tim Hortons headlines with just a heartfelt mention directed at the Snow family, right?
Yes.
I thought that Craig Conroy and the Calgary Flames did a wonderful job on Thursday acknowledging Chris's latest battle. But just a remarkable man, Chris Snow, remarkable family, the strength of Kelsey, Chris's wife, the mother of their children, in keeping us all up to date on how things are progressing and knowing that the end is near, right? But the legacy of Chris Snow clearly, and Kelsey, by the way, will be of the work that they've done in association with ALS and the battle. And the fact that, the man is on life support, but he's on life support so he can donate his organs. I don't know where to go with this other than I'm just so thrilled at how Conroy, the Calgary Flames, the National Hockey League, and everyone associated with this story have followed it and shared it from the beginning to, as we approach now, the near end.
Well, we had Kelsey and Chris on the podcast and a couple of years ago, and
yeah,
it was really remarkable to watch them. I met them at the Stanley Cup final in Tampa a couple of years ago when Colorado was there. And like Chris's enthusiasm to talk about the game and Kelsey's personality, which is, it's just like energy. And it was just amazing to watch them and how many people came over and knew them because of their, the way that they publicly went through Chris's diagnosis and struggles in life and his victories in life. Like watching him, losing the ability to move his right hand and mowing the lawn left-handed and playing catch with Cohen left-handed and and then learning to do something else. And it was inspirational, sad, remarkable, like all of it. And man, I just wish all the best to them. And Chris's legacy will not, and Chris's memory will not go away. It will be something that Calgary will recognize, and the hockey world will and should recognize. He was anybody you talk to says he was a remarkable person and was on a career path that would have changed the way, people might have looked at where he was going to end up. He was going to be a general manager at one time, and then that just wasn't to be. And just sad to them. And, and just the best to Kelsey and the kids.
Yes. God bless and Godspeed, Chris. Our interviews on Ray and Dregs this year brought to us by Canadian Club Whiskey, introducing the first release of the Canadian Club Invitation Series, CC 15-year-old Sherry Cask Grey, signature CC classic 12-year-old whiskey. It's finished with a secondary aging in Oloroso sherry casks. All the hallmarks of classic Canadian Club with the added richness and sweetness of sherry. They're putting the pressure on us right now is what they're doing because, hey, we're a one guest per week podcast. That's what we do, right? But with everything they've got going on with the invitation series, we had Mark Stone earlier this week. Next week, we're gonna have to come up with someone big, just in association with Canadian Club.
I think that really falls, as you know, on your plate.
It kind of does. It does. Ask Ray and Dregs anything. Fire your questions our way on Twitter and Instagram. at Ray and Dregs or on the website, rayanddregs.com. We've got a couple of long-time listeners, Ray. We're going to start with a day one listener, okay, David Michael Plant, who says, point system in the NHL. Point of contention since the shootout was introduced. David says, I know that Ray likes the idea of a 3-point system, but David is suggesting a 2-point option where 0 points for a shootout loss and maybe 1 point for the shootout winner. He thinks it would amplify pressure to get the job done in overtime. You buying it?
Well, I've never thought of it in that way, but the chances of teams having 0 points is not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
Once it gets past overtime, or it goes to overtime, no chance. I know I don't know this. Apparently the numbers don't or the positions in the standings don't change very much if you have a 3-point win.
They've done that. They've done that work. Yeah.
They've done that exercise before.
Yeah.
I think the game should all matter the same. The same number of points should be awarded in every game. That's just the way I feel. I think it's kind of silly that it doesn't. But it doesn't seem to be any appetite to change it.
No. I'd be okay with 2 points for a win, 0 points for a loss, no matter how you lose. You lose in the shootout, you don't get a point. You lose in overtime, you don't get a point. Winning team gets 2, everybody moves on. But to your point, without having the numbers in front of us, they've done those exercises, and it really doesn't play itself out. All right, since we're talking numbers, we don't do this often on the podcast. Here's one from Jim Doucette in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Thoughts on advanced analytics being used or not used for roster construction with the preseason going on. So, for instance, players on PTOs, professional tryouts, for those listening who don't know, being judged primarily by analytics, or is it just the good old eye test to determine who or who doesn't make the final roster?
Do you know what matters in a PTO more than anything? And you know this, Dregs, is their contract.
Right.
Is that they don't have one? Can they fit them in?
Yeah.
They're looking at these players that come in on a PTO in a specific spot.
Yeah.
Like, can they make our team in that spot? So you don't need analytics when you're looking at one spot on one team.
Yeah.
Now that's for somebody. That's for the analytics might help as you look at. Maybe if you're looking to pick somebody up on waivers or something, but if I'm looking at Darren Dreger as my third line right winger, can he fit in that spot? I'm just looking at the other guys on my roster and I'm looking at you and going, are you better than him? And can I fit your money, whatever it's going to be, in our roster?
Right.
That's the easiest spot. I mean, you already know the player because you brought them in. You just need to see if they fit in that spot.
All right, couple more real quick ones and ask Ray and Dregs anything. AJ Anthony asking, should there be an award for the player who has the most assists in a season? And of course, we would call it the Wayne Gretzky Award. It's been kicked around by media, and NHL head office has responded to it. I mean, I think the answer to it is yes. There should be an award for this. No different than renaming the existing awards. Yeah. The league is reluctant because of the history of the individuals on the trophies and whatnot. But what do you think? Should there be an individual award for most assists?
Yes. And I do think the award should be renamed, and the current award should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. So those original names are always honored and always remembered. And the new trophies should be named with players and builders that are significant to today's game. Like, what's wrong with updating?
Nothing.
There's nothing. Like, to me, you're hanging on to a dusty old sweater that you don't want to throw away. And so, but you're not throwing it away. You're putting the Art Ross trophy in the Hall of Fame, and it's the Art Ross trophy. And the new trophy, by the way, is going to look exactly the same, but it's going to be called the Mario Lemieux trophy. Or if you've got the Gretzky assist trophy, that's the Gretzky. Like, the Norris trophy put it in the Hall of Fame, and name it the Bobby Orr Trophy.
Yeah.
Like that to me is just a way to modernize that people can connect a little better. Nobody knows or really understands what the significant contributions were of these older trophies. Put them in the Hall of Fame, have a plaque so people can read it, and then have the new trophies. But nobody's asking me, but I just offered anyway.
All right, last one from Clint in Central Alberta, who's also an avid Ray and Dregs listener. So thanks, Clint. Appreciate it.
Yep.
This one is a no-brainer for me, but I'm curious to hear what your response is. Playing a round of golf. Clint is playing a round of golf by himself. So automatically, I got a red flag on this play.
Yeah.
I mean, I have at the Cabbage, I've got a par 3 18-hole executive, really nice little course. The first tee is maybe 1,000 yards from my cabin. I've gone out there, I played 3 holes, I played 6. That's different. That's practice. That's not actually playing the round. So Clint says 154-yard par 3. You know where this is going, right? First shot, hits it into the water. So what does he do? Tees up a provisional. Of course he would.
Yeah.
Hits the perfect shot. 2 bounces, rolls into the cup.
Nice par.
Hole in one for lore or an incredible par save? It's a par save.
It's a par. It's not a hole in one.
No.
It's not. And the fact that you're by yourself, unfortunately, is going to lend itself to some question about it. Like, it would be bad. It's a bad break. I mean, me and Kim Jong-un or whatever, there we had, what did he have, 18 hole-in-ones or something?
But here's what I'm thinking, and I've done this too on the part, like if you're playing by yourself, and again, I'm practicing when I'm doing this, I will play 2 balls, but I'm playing 2 balls, right? So Darren Dreger, player 1, hits it in the water. Darren Dreger, player 2, in practice, hits it into the hole from 154 yards. It's still not a hole in one because you're practicing, right?
Yeah, and the 2-ball thing, like I've done that too. Nothing counts when you're just out there hitting the ball and getting a walk around. Like there's nothing counts. So Clint, thanks for listening. Nice par.
Speaking of, all right, we're going to wrap up the podcast, Ray. Episode 2 of Ray and Dregs. What a week it's been. But as you said right off the top, you're golfing. Final round. Well, it's not your final round, but it's the final round of your routine golf because you'll probably play twice.
This might be it, actually.
Might be it.
So I just looked the other day. In October, I've got 10 flights.
Oh.
And, once the games start, there's no time. And we got a really cool thing at the course I play at. Like a few years ago, they covered all the driving range.
Yeah.
So it's got, it's got stalls. It's got heaters in it.
Oh, nice.
And so, I'll go and hit balls once a week because it's just a mental cleanse.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about the weather because once it starts raining here, it doesn't stop till March. So, I do like that. So I won't put my clubs away, but I'll just go and hit the balls at the range but I won't play anymore.
Nice. Well, enjoy
it better end good. Otherwise, what are you going to do? But what do you got? What do you got on the weekend?
It's busy. Yeah. Friday, Saturday, we've got preseason Toronto Maple Leaf stuff. Sunday is always designated for football. I like watching football. And obviously, you've got the Ryder Cup going on this weekend.
There might not be much to watch by then.
No, it looks that way. And then celebrating a good buddy's 60th birthday, we're going to Wooden Sticks on.
Oh, nice.
On Monday. So that could be my final round of golf as well. So, all right, buddy. Good week. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Yeah, great through the first week. Thanks for listening, everybody. And we'll be back with a guest in week 2. And hope everybody has a good weekend. Thanks for listening.
Yes, and thank you to our sponsors who continue to support Ray and Dregs and make the podcast possible. Our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey, and Tim Hortons. And as always, as Ray mentions, thanks to you for listening, rating, sharing the podcast, and for following us, which is important, on the Ray and Dregs YouTube channel. That is episode 2 of Ray and Dregs. Until next time, stay safe, everybody.